No Time to Die is packed full of references to the 24 other movies in the James Bond franchise. Now there's more than you might think, but we'll start with the obvious ones, like the dots in the opening titles being a direct reference to Dr. No, and the Aston Martin DB5 showing off its gadgets in its first chase sequence since Goldfinger. And of course the DB5 isn't the only car reference. Bond later drives the Aston Martin V8 from The Living Daylights. Even the number plates match. But did you notice the black 1957 Chevy in the Cuba scene, otherwise known as the first car Bond drives on film? Like I said, the movie has more references than you might think. Also, I should say that there will be No Time to Die spoilers in this video, but why would you be watching this if you hadn't already seen it? Anyway, the most direct influence for No Time to Die was of course on Her Majesty's Secret Service. The parallels are clear through Hans Zimmer's score, the use of Louis Armstrong's We Have All the Time in the World, as well as the line itself being used by Bond in the movie.
We have all the time in the world.
Other obvious callbacks to earlier Bond films include the portraits of Judi Dench's M, who first appeared in GoldenEye, as well as Robert Brown's M, who first appeared as that character in Octopussy. Fans of the Craig films will also appreciate the French Bulldog from Skyfall, and this line from Nomi.
I get why you shot him.
The Ring from Spectre appears here, plus we get to see Q's cats.
I also have a mortgage, and 2 cats to feed.
Also, the entire opening sequence of No Time to Die is foreshadowed in Spectre.
A man once came to our house to kill my father. Papa kept a Beretta 9mm under the sink with the bleach.
But the connections go way deeper than these obvious ones, and show just how passionate the filmmakers were about this franchise. Let's go back to Dr. No for a second. Sure, we all spotted the dots in the opening title sequence, but what about the hazmat suits being worn by the scientists in the lab at the start? Or the pink suits of Safin's henchmen? What about the Jamaica location? Not only does this also appear in Live and Let Die, Bond's bachelor pad in No Time to Die is actually GoldenEye, the residence of Ian Fleming, the author of the Bond novels. And it's not the only Fleming reference either. The quote M reads at the end comes from the novel You Only Live Twice, as does this line from Bond.
Die, brother, die!
Not just that, but Safin's Poison Garden and the Hans Zimmer track from the score are inspired by that book. Moving through Bond's cinematic history here, Lea Seydoux' Madeline Swan being in No Time to Die marks the first time a Bond woman has appeared in 2 movies since Sylvia Trench reappeared in From Russia With Love. Now we've already covered Goldfinger, so let's go to the opening titles of Thunderball, where this scuba diver appears like in No Time to Die. And staying in the opening credits, we have another OHMSS reference with the tridents, hourglass, and the clock. The credits also give us flashes of past characters from Craig's Bond. The falling statue is reminiscent of the falling statues in GoldenEye's opening titles. Now the most obvious connection to the Roger Moore films is of course to For Your Eyes Only. In both movies, Bond knocks the car and kills a secondary villain who betrayed his friend. Plus, Bond avenging Felix Leiter is the plot of License to Kill. For Your Eyes Only also opens with Bond visiting the grave of his dead lover, and we have another musical reference here by Hans Zimmer, playing Vesper's theme from Casino Royale. Other references to Moore's films include the parallels between Safin's lair and Stromberg's in The Spy Who Loved Me, but there's also subtle touches like the floor-to-ceiling paintings looking like the underwater lair and a vehicle that converts into a submarine. There's a plot parallel to Moonraker, which is also about an evil villain proposing to wipe out humanity with a bioweapon. And similarly, you could see a connection between the ending of No Time to Die and the opening of Tomorrow Never Dies, with the missiles being fired at Bond from a British naval vessel, or even driving the DB5 along a clifftop in Italy like he does at the start of GoldenEye. But the main reference to Pierce Brosnan's Bond era is Felix's Delectado cigar.
I'm here to pick up some Delectados.
And while we're with Felix, his death floating slowly away from Bond underwater is the same as Vesper's death from Casino Royale. In that movie, Felix introduces himself as
Brother from Langley.
which explains this line from Bond.
I had a brother. His name was Felix Leiter.
Bond and Felix sharing a drink at the bar is a nod to Quantum of Solace, as is the repetition of this shot. We round out Craig's films with Madeline being trapped under the ice, like Bond is in Skyfall. In Moneypenny's office, Bond tosses his visitor badge into the bin. Bond throwing things around her office is a hallmark of the Bond franchise as a whole, as is the tuxedo, the Walther PPK, the License to Kill, the gun barrel, both of them, and of course his 2 most famous lines.
Bond. James Bond.
2 vodka martinis, shaken, not stirred.
The first video I ever made on this channel was about how to make a good James Bond movie, and one of the things I talked about was the importance of paying tribute to the heritage of the franchise while at the same time taking it forward. None of the references in No Time to Die ever feel forced or unnatural. They're woven into the film in a way that I think most casual viewers wouldn't even notice, but make Bond fans go like this. Unlike some other franchises that seem permanently trapped doing the same thing in the hope that nostalgia is a substitute for story, James Bond is always taking us somewhere new, but doing so in a way that pays tribute to its rich history. No Time to Die broke so many of the tropes and conventions that have been established for what a Bond movie should be.
This never happened to the other fella.
And I think it's one of the best ones ever because it showed us that so long as you respect and acknowledge the history of the character and the franchise, you can take risks and do something new and innovative with them. But whether you liked the latest one or not, there will always be another Bond movie, because the final Bond reference in No Time to Die is a 4-word promise that appears at the conclusion of almost every other James Bond movie. James Bond will return. Thank you for watching. I'm sure there's other references I have missed, so please let me know in the comments what they are. And if you enjoyed this video, then please consider subscribing or maybe sharing it around. I'd really appreciate it. I'll see you next time.